Neha Sharma was a young bride with a radiant smile, celebrated in a wedding that seemed like a fairy tale. Rohit Malhotra was the proud husband, admired for his wealth and success. But behind the glitter of their perfect marriage lay a devastating secret, one that would end in betrayal, violence, and Neha's brutal death. Neha Sharma had always been the center of attention in her family. Born into a respectable middle-class household in Delhi, she was known for her beauty, charm, and education. Her parents had worked tirelessly to find her the best match, and when Rohit Malhotra came into the picture, it seemed like a dream come true. Rohit was the only son of a wealthy businessman, handsome, ambitious, and admired in social circles. His family carried status, and their proposal promised security, respect, and prosperity for Neha. After months of discussions and preparations, their wedding was announced, and excitement spread through the neighborhood. The wedding day was nothing short of a grand spectacle. Guests arrived in dazzling outfits, the air filled with music, laughter, and the aroma of rich Indian food. Neha wore a stunning red bridal lehenga embroidered with gold thread, her jewelry heavy yet elegant, sparkling under the stage lights. Every detail, from the flower arrangements to the live band, spoke of perfection. Cameras flashed constantly, capturing the couple as they exchanged garlands and sat through the rituals. To the guests, it was a celebration of love and tradition. To the families, it was the union of two respectable names. Everyone smiled, clapped, and blessed the pair, unaware of the secret Neha held close to her heart. While Rohit basked in the admiration of his relatives, Neha struggled to keep her emotions steady. Beneath the glitter and smiles, she carried the weight of her past, a past she desperately hoped would never resurface. Just months earlier, her life had followed a very different path. She had been deeply involved with Arjun, her college boyfriend, a man she once thought she would spend forever with. Their relationship had ended abruptly under pressure from her family, who insisted that Arjun lacked the financial stability to offer her a secure future. It was not love but duty that had guided her into this marriage, and she convinced herself she would eventually grow to love Rohit. As the wedding rituals continued late into the night, Neha tried to push away memories of Arjun. She told herself this new chapter was a blessing, a chance to build a stable life with a man her family adored. Guests whispered about how lucky she was to marry into the Malhotra family. Everyone saw her as a bride stepping into a future filled with wealth and privilege. But deep inside, Neha knew her story was not as flawless as it appeared. The joy of the evening could not mask the unease in her heart, for she was already hiding something that could destroy everything she had just gained. Life after the wedding settled into a routine that, on the surface, looked perfect. Neha adjusted to her new home in Rohit's spacious apartment, where every corner reflected his family's wealth and influence. Relatives visited often, bringing gifts and blessings, and everyone spoke about how well she fit into her new role as a wife. To outsiders, it seemed she was living every woman's dream. But behind closed doors, Neha was battling an anxiety she could not escape. A few weeks into the marriage, she began to feel unwell. At first, she dismissed it as stress from adjusting to a new life, but soon the truth became impossible to ignore. She was pregnant, and the timing confirmed what she already feared. The child was not Rohit's. The realization sent her into a storm of panic. Her mind replayed every detail of her past relationship with Arjun, every moment of closeness that now carried consequences she could not erase. She knew if the truth came out, her life would collapse. Rohit's pride, his family's reputation, her parents' honor, all of it would be destroyed. Neha decided she had no choice but to keep the pregnancy hidden for as long as possible. She crafted excuses whenever anyone asked about her health, blaming fatigue, dietary changes, or the stress of married life. She began wearing looser clothes, carefully draping her dupatta to conceal the changes in her body. Her family noticed she seemed withdrawn, but they assumed she was adjusting to her new household. Rohit, proud of their marriage, noticed her exhaustion and occasional sickness, but initially brushed it off as normal. When he suggested a medical checkup, Neha reluctantly agreed, fearing refusal would raise suspicion. At the clinic, the doctor spoke cautiously about her condition, hinting at early pregnancy. Rohit Its face lit up with joy at the thought of becoming a father, while Neha forced a smile, her heart pounding with dread. She prayed he would not question the dates or notice her unease. Back home, Rohit began making plans for their future, already picturing himself as a proud father. Neha, meanwhile, spent sleepless nights staring at the ceiling, overwhelmed by guilt and fear. She thought about confessing the truth, but the risk was too great. Instead, she turned to her cousin in quiet desperation, whispering her secret over the phone, seeking comfort in the only person she trusted. She believed her secret was safe, but that single conversation would soon open the door to the darkest chapter of her life. Rohit had always seen himself as a man in control, proud of his achievements and the respect he commanded within his circle. For him, marriage was not only about companionship, but also about maintaining the image of a perfect family. When Neha's pregnancy was confirmed, he felt an overwhelming sense of pride. He spoke of it to his parents, hinted at it to his friends, and began dreaming about fatherhood. He believed it was the next step in securing his legacy. But beneath Neha's forced smiles, cracks were beginning to show. Her silence and nervous behavior unsettled him, though he dismissed it at first as the natural anxiety of a new bride. That illusion shattered one evening when Rohit accidentally overheard a hushed phone call. Neha was speaking with her cousin, her voice trembling with fear. In that moment, he caught the devastating truth. The child she carried was not his. She whispered the name Arjun, the ex-boy, friend Rohit had never even known existed. The words pierced him like a blade, and the world he thought he had built crumbled instantly. To him, it was not just a betrayal of love but an insult to his pride, his family's honor, and the image he had so carefully guarded. From that night onward, Rohit was consumed by suspicion. He replayed every detail of their marriage in his mind, every instance of her hesitation, every excuse she had given. The lies seemed obvious now, and he felt humiliated for not seeing through them sooner. His rage simmered quietly, masked behind cold silences and sharp stares. Neha noticed the shift in his behavior, but chose not to confront it, hoping he had not understood the full weight of what he had overheard. She continued pretending, trying to carry on with her daily duties, but the tension in the apartment was suffocating. Rohit's anger turned into an obsession. He began tracking her movements, searching through her belongings, and questioning her in subtle ways. The more he thought about it, the more his humiliation grew. He imagined how others would laugh if they discovered the truth, how his family's name would be dragged through the mud. To him, Neha was no longer the perfect bride he had proudly introduced to the world. She was a liar who had robbed him of his dignity. His thoughts turned darker with each passing day, and instead of seeking answers or clarity, he allowed his fury to take control. A storm was building inside him, one that would soon erupt with devastating consequences. The tension in the Malhotra apartment had grown unbearable. Days passed in heavy silence, with Neha moving cautiously through the house, avoiding Rohit's piercing gaze. He no longer spoke to her with warmth or affection. Instead, his words were curt, his tone icy, and his eyes seemed to carry a storm that never calmed. Neha tried to maintain a fragile normalcy, preparing meals, keeping the home in order, and pretending everything was fine when relatives visited. But behind closed doors, she felt like she was living with a stranger. Her heart pounded every time Rohit walked into the room, fearing what he might do, fearing that he had already pieced together the truth she had worked so hard to conceal. The breaking point came one stormy evening. Rain lashed against the windows, thunder rolled in the distance, and the power flickered. Rohit had spent the entire day in brooding silence, his anger festering like an open wound. That night he finally unleashed it. He cornered Neha in their bedroom, demanding answers with a fury she had never seen before. The confrontation quickly spiraled out of control. His words turned into shouts, his hands trembling with rage. Neha tried to explain, tried to plead, but her voice was drowned out by his accusations. What began as a heated argument escalated into physical violence. Rohit's fury exploded, and he struck her, the force shocking even him in that first moment. But once the line was crossed, there was no turning back. He continued, each blow fueled by anger, betrayal, and humiliation. Neha cried out, begging him to stop, her body collapsing under the weight of his rage. The room echoed with the sounds of struggle. The thuds, the sobs, the shattering of objects knocked to the ground. Outside, the storm raged on, masking the horrors unfolding within. By the time silence returned, Neha lay motionless on the floor, her face bruised, her body broken. The unborn child she had carried with such conflicted emotions was gone with her. Rohit stood over her, his chest heaving, his hands stained with the reality of what he had done. In that moment, the gravity of his crime began to settle in, but it was too late. The damage was irreversible. Neighbors, who had heard muffled screams and loud crashes, grew uneasy. When the noises ceased, they assumed the couple had simply argued like so many others. But the next morning, when no one saw Neha and the door remained locked, suspicion grew. Soon, the police were called, and the dark truth behind the Malhotra home would be revealed to the world. The following morning, the Malhotra apartment became the center of hushed whispers and nervous glances. Neighbors who had spent the night listening to unsettling noises could no longer ignore their instincts. When repeated knocks on the door went unanswered, someone finally alerted the authorities. Police arrived quickly, forcing their way inside, and what they found sent shockwaves through the building. Neha's lifeless body lay on the bedroom floor, covered in bruises that told the story of a brutal night. The scene was one of chaos. Broken glass, overturned furniture, and a silence so heavy it felt suffocating. Rohit sat nearby in a daze, his eyes hollow, his hands trembling. He did not flee, nor did he attempt to hide what he had done. The news spread rapidly, reaching both families before the police had even finished their initial investigation. For Neha's parents, the tragedy was unbearable. Their daughter, once celebrated as a glowing bride, was now gone forever. Along with the grandchild they had only just begun to dream of meeting. Rohit's parents were equally devastated, unable to reconcile the image of their proud son with the man who had committed such an unspeakable crime. The story quickly made its way into headlines, plastered across newspapers and broadcast on television. What had been presented to society as a perfect marriage was now exposed as a tale of betrayal, rage, and death. In court, the evidence against Rohit was overwhelming. Medical reports confirmed the brutality of the attack, while witness statements from neighbors described the chilling sounds of that stormy night. The prosecution painted a clear picture of a man consumed by jealousy and humiliation, who chose violence over reason. Rohit showed little emotion during the trial, his expression blank, as if he had already surrendered to his fate. His defense argued that he had acted in a moment of uncontrollable anger, but the judge was unmoved. The verdict was swift, life imprisonment. For the community, the case became a grim lesson in how appearances can deceive. Behind lavish weddings and smiling photographs, hidden truths and unspoken fears can quietly fester until they erupt with devastating consequences. Neha's story was retold again and again, not just as a crime of passion, but as a warning about secrets too heavy to bear and the destruction they can invite. Her family mourned in silence, carrying the weight of a life cut short, while Rohit began his years behind bars. Haunted by the night, his rage turned love into tragedy.